Welcome back everybody to what is effectively part 2 of me playing around with an eye of round straight out of the bag. Part 1, hopefully you've already watched, was in making bresaola. That's done, that's already put away, and I promised I was going to come right back with tonight's dinner, and here it is. So today I'm going to be doing a version of Scouse. For those of you who've never heard of it, Scouse, also called lobscouse, is a traditional stew, very famous in one particular part of the world for whom its citizens are generally named after, that being Liverpool. My entire family is from Liverpool originally, and I still feel a very strong connection to the city, helped out in large part to a certain football team that normally does quite well. They're on a bit of a bad streak right now, but hopefully that's going to turn around. But Scouse, once upon a time, back in about the 17th century, the 1700s, 1800s, I guess somewhere around there, was a massive shipping port. And because of that, there were a lot of sailors coming in and out from various countries, including, I believe, places like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, those kinds of places. And that's where the origin of Scouse came from. It came from the sailors who introduced the dish to the city. As lobscouse at the time, Liverpool has taken that name, shortened it down to Scouse, and that's why you hear them called Scousers. But the dish couldn't be simpler, really. Generally what happens is you take your leftover meat from whatever dish you had the day before and you make a stew. And that's all it is. You're going to be making a stew. Traditionally it can be made with lamb or beef or a mixture of both. I do not have any lamb today. I believe usually you would use, again, your cheap cuts. Liverpool was and still is a very working class city, and this is something that was born out of necessity. This was something that said, don't you dare throw out your leftovers, use every last scrap. So as I say, it would start with the meat left over from the day before, and it would be mixed in with some potatoes, some carrots, some onions. A lot of people will say swede, which is turnip. I today have some cabbage, partly because I'm not a big fan of swede, but I have cabbage on hand and I do like that. Some people will say don't put cabbage in. That's the other thing. This recipe is very open to interpretation, but the basic idea is you're using your leftover meat and you're mixing it in with some carrots and potatoes. Also, you're going to need some beef stock, and you're going to need some salt and pepper, and I've got a little bit of garlic, and then you can toss in some Worcester sauce. So those are all the ingredients. I'm going to get going and walk you through it. So you might recall I said something about holding on to the fat. I've just tossed it in the pan here, the fat cap that was on the eye of round, and I'm just going to chop it up loosely and hopefully get some fat to render out of that, and that's going to aid in the cooking process. You can use vegetable oil, but where's the fun in that when you've got the fat off the meat? So we're just going to give that a minute or two. See if we can get that running. And I'll add a little bit of oil. And that'll get a base going, and toss in the onions. I'm not big on measurements, but you want something roughly like a 3-to-1 measurement of veg to meat. It just depends on how much meat you have. So the onions are going to go in first. You let them just clear off a bit, sweat them down. Give that a minute and get a little bit of garlic in here too. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but if you buy garlic in bulk, usually you can go into the store and you can find them in rolls of 3 for $1. Every once in a while they'll put them in, those 3 packs and then another 5 on top of that, and they'll sell it off for $2 because it's turnip. You buy it like that, peel it yourself, and then stick it in a jar A little bit of oil in there. You've got fresh made ready garlic. Nope. We're having lots of garlic today. Spilled a big chunk in there. So they're sweating nicely. Obviously, I've done all my prep ahead of time. You can see I've already cubed the beef. I've already cut up my my potatoes. I've basically just quartered them, and then just simple cut on the carrots. But it really is an easy thing to do. It's just the time invested afterwards, because this will go and stew down for a couple of hours before it's ready. As long as you've got everything ready to go, there's minimal time over the stove and in the kitchen. That's burning a bit hot. I'm going to turn that down to about halfway. I think I put the garlic in a bit soon. It's actually sticking to the bottom. So if that happens, add a splash of your stock. And as well, unfortunately, I didn't have any homemade beef stock in the house. So one thing I'm always short of is beef stock. I've got everything else. I've got chicken, I've got fish, I've got duck, but no beef. Because even the bones on beef seem like they're really expensive these days. Okay, so onions are turning color. Throw the meat in there with them. And I've saved all the little scrappy bits. Separated it from the fat. And that's just going to add flavor to the pot. I'm going to get that in there, get a nice brown color on everything. Give it a minute or 2 or 3. And again, make sure everything is ready to go. And then there's no mad panic at the end. Everything right in front of you. Good news as well, out of that massive eye of round, I still have another chunk left, so I might be playing with that later as well. I might just stick that in the oven, slow roast it, and then shave it for some sandwich meat or something. It's just about got all the color it needs. You see some of the nicer brown bits there. And when that is ready to go, I'll give it another minute or 2. Again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to add the carrots and the potatoes and the cabbage, and add some liquid and let it simmer. It's really all there is to it. You don't have to worry about thickening it up, because as long as it's going, these potatoes are going to start breaking down, and they're what's going to add the thickness to the sauce. You don't have to worry about flour or cornstarch slurries or anything like that. Just let the potatoes do their magic. And as with all good soups and stews, if you leave it overnight and come back the next day, it's even better, because the flavors have a chance to join and create that wonderful harmony. Listen to me, I sound like a poet. So yeah, got some color on the meat. Got some juices flowing out there. And we will start. Let's take that out and take a look. Still quite raw in the middle, but that's okay, because this is going to simmer for 3 hours or so now. So, in with the carrots. And the potatoes. Again, this is as basic a meal as you can possibly imagine. Cheap, simple, unpretentious food. Added a little bit of thyme to that beef stock. You're going to get some salt and pepper at the end. Get the cabbage in there too. And give it a couple of splashes of the good stuff. Or a few. That's not quite enough water to cover, so I'll just take the water that the carrots are sitting in. Add that. And that's it. So, like I said, I'm going to let that boil for 3-4 hours maybe. Not boil, sorry, simmer. And then hopefully by the end of that, we'll have something that you'll wish had smell-o-vision on it. Alright, see you in a while.